Good morning, everyone. Thanks for showing up for this morning session. So we're going to talk about Bitcoin Clique, which is work that has been presented at ACNS this year. So what I'm going to present to you today is a construction for a commit chain on Bitcoin, or rather with a little asterisk there. We're going to talk about that later. First of all, what is a commit chain? Let's imagine a bunch of apparently quite active users who send payments to each other, and they wouldn't like to pay all the high fees on Bitcoin, so they would like to package their transactions, their payments as a single on-chain transaction on Bitcoin. And that could happen periodically, like every now and then, package the new payments that took place into a single transaction. This is essentially what a commit chain is. It's kind of a side chain, but it commits to the main chain, Bitcoin in this case. So first, let's get some motivation for that. Blockchains are quite expensive to use, so it's a good idea to find such solutions as a commit chain. These family of solutions are layer 2 solutions, and this is much cheaper because you kind of touch the blockchain less, right? And why do we work on Bitcoin? So there's a number of reasons to make that choice. First of all, it has a lot of robust security analysis behind it, so we build on solid foundation. And then its scripting is not Turing complete, which makes our task harder, but it also shows that it's kind of a common denominator of mostly all other blockchains. So if you have any kind of scripting capabilities, then you can do that on your own blockchain. And of course, Bitcoin is has quite some value locked under it, so it makes sense to just make Bitcoin more liquid in one way or another. And one could say, but we already have layer 2 for Bitcoin at home. Why not stick with channels? And the reason is that channels are hard to manage. Channels have all this baggage of having your money locked in a specific channel, if you're familiar with this literature. And there's a bunch of issues there. There's an overlay network that might break, and it might break in ways that usual networks don't, like channel imbalance. And a solution to that has been proposed, and it's hubs, payment hubs, which have channels with everyone. This is, of course, a centralization hazard, and in practice, it needs the hubs to lock up immense amounts of collateral to enable any payment possible. And this means that they have a lot of opportunity cost that the users then have to pay in forms of fee. Our protocol will still have collateral, but much less than O of N, essentially less than hubs over payment channels. So let's see exactly what we're after. We want anyone in the clique to pay anyone else. So the name clique comes from the graph where everyone is directly connected with everyone else. Parties should be able to leave at any time without being beholden to others with their own money. There should be a maximum finality time, maximum liveness parameter, essentially. And we shouldn't add any extra trust assumptions apart from the ones on layer 1, i.e. honest majority of power. And we want to minimize as much as possible the on-chain transactions, which is the goal of any layer 2, essentially. So let's introduce a little bit how things work on Bitcoin. This is a Bitcoin transaction. It has a single input and a single output. Over the output, you can see how many coins, how much value is locked in this particular output. Under the output is the rule by which one can spend this output. In this case, party A, Alice, is the only one that can spend this output. And how can she do that? She can do that, for example, with this other transaction, which has a single input, which carries her signature, sigma, and it has 2 outputs. The first output has C coins, C of those 3 C coins, and the remaining 2 C coins can be found on the other output. The first output has a slightly complex spending rule. We're going to introduce the notation here. This can be read as this output can be spent either by A or by B. But B is encumbered with a time lock. So B has to wait for time T before they can spend this output, whereas A can spend it right away. The second output, on the other hand, can be spent if C and D agree. So this is the notation that I would like to introduce. And let's see a strawman solution, a naive solution to the problem of Bitcoin Clique. So let's assume an operator. We will have an operator later for this construction. that at this stage is trusted. And so parties P1 through Pn have each C coins, and they all create a transaction collaboratively that join all these coins together into a single output controlled by the operator. So the operator can now keep track of what payments are happening off-chain among the parties of the clique, and keep track of who owns what. Later, if a party wants to join the clique, they can just ask the operator to have a transaction like this and add their C coins to the pot. You will notice that transactions that are managed and controlled by the parties are green, and transactions managed by the operator are black. Later, if a party wants to get out of the clique, they can just ask the operator to give them some money, the money that it belongs to them. Of course, this construction trusts the operator, and the operator could very well run away with the money. And you have to trust the operator that they will not run away, that they will give you back your fair share of the money. So this is not a trustless solution. Let's go towards a actually trustless solution. So the main idea behind our construction, which safeguards the security of the users, is this idea where we have, at any point in time, we have two copies, two outputs waiting to be spent. And each output, as you can see, has the entire sum of the money in the clique. Where does this money come from? Because half of it, the NC part on S1, on the step transaction 1, comes from the parties. The other half, the NC coins on S2, comes from the operator. So this is the collateral that I was talking about. And this is, you could say, one of the drawbacks of the system, that the operator has to put up as much collateral as the entire value of the clique. But this is still way less than what the operator of a hub in a payment channel would have to put up. So it's still an improvement compared to previous work. And you will notice that the spending condition for both of these outputs are either the operator after a time lock, or some rule C that we will look at later. And this rule C is what is not encumbered with a time lock, and this means that it can be used right away. And in fact, this will be accessible by any user in order to take back their money unilaterally. And if you notice, the time locks of the two outputs differ by T. And that's on purpose, because that means that if both of those outputs are on chain, then the first output will expire, the time block of the first output will expire first. And it then should be spent by the operator as quickly as possible with a new step transaction that reflects in some way the new allocation of coins. What has happened essentially between the time that S1 was published and S3 was published. And so if the operator does not spend S1 right away, or if it spends it in a wrong way, then the parties will use S2 to get their coins. And S2, notice that it's still locked with a time lock, because the time lock of S1 just expired. So the time lock of S2 has T time more until it expires, and so the operator cannot do anything with the output of S2. This idea is the central idea that safeguards parties' money. Later, when S2 expires, you see the next output that expires is S2, because the time lock of S3 is 3T. When S2 expires, when its time lock expires, the operator moves on to spend that output. So it alternates spending between one and the other. And this is the normal state of affairs. This is the normal evolution of a channel in which there's a single transaction every time T, which is a configurable parameter. And this transaction is quite small. It has a single input and a single output without complicated logic. So this keeps the running costs low. And of course, these transactions can reflect any number of payments in the clique. So moving on, what is this secret C sauce that we used there? We have to open this up and see what's going on there. So this is where we introduce check template verify, which is an opcode that is not available on Bitcoin today, but it might get added in the future in the form of actually this proposal with this name, or if we go with OPCAT, which is a prime contender to enter Bitcoin script, we could emulate it with that. And so how this script is read is that it can be spent by the operator after time 4t or by transaction T1 at any point in time. Transaction T1 is specified precisely, almost precisely, in the output. All the relevant parts of T1 are specified already at the time of the creation of S4. So that means that any party can come around and use T1 to spend this output, but they can't use anything else. This is kind of the magic sauce that check template verified gives us, which is not possible otherwise. Being able to specify early what transaction can spend an output. And so we will briefly go for some cryptography here, which will be used a little bit later. I'd like to introduce the concept of adapter signatures. And this is something that has been formalized in the literature, but I will just give you the very basic idea of the main protocol that motivates this primitive, which we will use later. We have Alice and Bob. Alice has a public statement Y capital and a secret witness Y small. And she wants to sell this witness to Bob, and Bob wants to buy it. The public information for now are the public keys, the public statement, as well as the transaction by which Bob pays Alice. This transaction is not signed, it's not on the blockchain, and Bob wants to only sign it if he's reassured that he can receive the witness from Alice. So the steps of using an adapter signature to achieve that is that first Bob, as we say, pre-signs. That's the first algorithm of the primitive. Pre-signs the signature, the transaction, using its own secret key and the public statement. This pre-signature is not yet a valid signature. However, Alice can use the adapt function of the adapter signature scheme, using her own, apply the adapt function on top of the pre-signature, using her secret witness to generate a full signature. This full signature is a valid signature by Bob's public key. And so now the transaction is fully signed, and Alice can publish it on the blockchain. And Bob can receive the signature either directly from Alice or by looking it up on the blockchain. What this achieves is that in one fell swoop, Alice is paid as the transaction is valid, and Bob can use the last interesting function here, extract, to get the witness, the secret witness, using the pre-signature, the signature that has been adapted by Alice, and the statement. And so Bob learns why, if and only if Alice is paid. So we achieved an atomic swap of a secret for money. In our case, in our setting, we use an extension of adapter signatures, which is a very simple modification. Instead of Alice having just one pair, she comes up with two pairs. And the secret that Bob wants to learn is the sum of the two secrets, the sum of the two witnesses. If Bob learns only one of the two witnesses, but not both, then Alice's secret is safe, because the other half cannot be computed by Bob. Let's see how we will exploit this to offer security to the operator now. And by the way, I will show you how the unilateral exit of a party works. These are the two outputs that we discussed before. This I use now S1 and S2. That could be any n, any two subsequent numbers, any two consecutive numbers. And so let's say that player one now wants to exit the clique. In this clique, we assume that there are just two parties for simplicity, with C coins each. What T does is that he publishes, what player one does is that he publishes transaction T1, which is specified on the CTV there. So he can only use that transaction. And what this transaction has is two outputs, one per party. And player's two output is just like player one's output, I just don't repeat the script. And what the script says for player one is that this output can be spent either by the operator after a time block, or before the time block expires, or at any time. Player one can spend it, but he also has to disclose a witness to this statement Y1, 1. And that's what he does when he publishes the so-called out transaction, O1, 1. This transaction allows P1 to spend its own money, but after a time lock T prime. The party that now can spend the money before the time lock is the operator. But the operator needs two witnesses, not just one. With this transaction, the party P1 published a signature that is this signature that corresponds to the witness Y11. And this is exactly the adapted signature that we discussed before, one of the two. This signature thus can be used by the operator to extract the secret Y1, the witness, that corresponds to Y1,1. At this point, if P1 just waits for time T prime, the time lock will expire and he will be able to take its own money and go do whatever it wants with it. And the operator cannot exercise its spending method on the out transaction because the operator knows only the secret Y1, not Y2. However, look what happens if P1 becomes greedy and tries to take its money from the other output as well, which now it's not entitled to because P1 only is entitled to C coins, not 2 C coins. So, nevertheless, P1 can still publish transaction T2, which has a similar script as the first one. It's just that this is locked with Y12, the second statement. And if the party 1 goes on to use transaction 012, similarly to the first path, they will have to use this signature sigma 2, from which the operator will then learn Y2. And by learning Y2, now the operator is able to spend and use this Spanish transaction and spend P1's money however they seem fit. So this way, the operator is safeguarded from attacks from malicious parties that try to use both available outputs to take their money. Parties should only use one of the two outputs, not both. So in this way, we have managed to close the circle and offer security to both the users using this staggered approach of two outputs and to the operator by using this two-shot adapter signature trick. There's a number of limitations to this work that we would like to explore further in the future. We do need an operator, which luckily is made and trusted. And this operator has to put up quite some collateral. Also, if you have noticed, this whole structure has a single denomination. This can be avoided in a naive way by just setting up many cliques with different denominations and use the same approach as in cash, which is that you have a number of denominations and then you mix and match with them and you can make any payment. Or we can come up with even more efficient versions where we don't need different cliques for each denomination, but we somehow combine them into less. And this current construction offers no privacy because all payments are disclosed between among parties are disclosed publicly within the clique at least. This is needed for parties to check that the transactions in the CTVs are correct. But we achieved a number of goals, which is, as we wanted from the beginning, to make it possible for anyone to pay anyone else in the clique. Parties are free to leave unilaterally using the technique we saw. There is a maximum time to finality, which we can calculate. The operator is assumed to be Byzantine, so no trust there. The number of transactions are minimized as much as possible by making sure that during normal operation, there is the number of transactions is completely constant in the number of users and in the number of payments. And what I haven't put up here is that in case of a closure of a channel, a unilateral closure without collaboration, the cost is logarithmic in the number of parties in the clique. So yes, because you have to publish a logarithmic number of transactions on chain to leave the clique. In the example we saw, there were just 2 parties, so this logarithm didn't show up. But it can be argued that this is only in the pessimistic case, so it's not too much of a burden. The operator is also secure. This is a new requirement that wasn't there initially since we didn't have an operator, hopefully. But since we have the operator, we have to offer them security, and we do. And what I haven't presented either is that we have set up a system of graceful recovery after closing starts. So if the clique starts to close, that by any one member of the clique, that doesn't mean that it has to close to completion and every party has to go home with their money. No, the parties that want to carry on with the clique can relatively cheaply recover the clique and carry on with their protocol. Thank you very much for your time. This has been the end of the talk, and there's a few extra slides for questions, and if there's time, I can show you, for example, how payments are carried out.
Thanks for the great talk. Are there any questions? There's one question.
Good morning. Great presentation. Very much enjoyed that. What are some of the applications that you think in this type of construction? Are you thinking just in terms of fast and cheap payments, or did you have any kind of like maybe Turing-complete applications in mind in this construction?
So this construction is only for payments. So essentially, the way it's constructed, it gives you less power on the L2 than Bitcoin does, which is sad. But it could be extended to more scripting capabilities, possibly. That's an interesting further direction.
You gave an example with 2 users. Can you tell us a little bit about the challenges of making it to multiple users, if that's also a high number?
So here is how it looks like to have more than 2 users. The difference is that essentially there is a binary tree that is created in our construction. In this example, we have 4 users, and the transaction T1 splits the money in 2, and then you have to do a second level transaction, a T2 or T3, in order to reach your level. And this scales logarithmically. There has to be some research on the branching factor. We can change the branching factor. This was just as a proof of concept construction. You can go for a higher, I think the ideal would be to go for a different branching factor for early stages and then a different branching factor later, closer to the end, so as to minimize the expected number of transactions. If you were to go for a flat structure where like T1 had all the outputs already, that would lead to other problems. And you wouldn't want to close the clique too quickly. That's one major issue there, that if only one party wants to close and the rest want to continue, then only one branch is evoked and the rest of the branches can be closed faster. So less outputs are put on chain eventually.
So you mentioned that users can leave unilaterally at any time. What about the operator?
The operator as well. So if we take a look at this situation, there is, at any time where T expires, the operator can do whatever they like with the output of S1, including going home and breaking the clique in one fell swoop. The other parties are still safe by the other output, of course. And so the operator takes back their entire sum of money. One thing that I haven't brought up is fees. Fees will be paid by the users to the operator, and the operator will then, probably out of band, and the operator will then use its own, alternate between spending fees from each output. So that gradually reduces the money in the clique, but at a very slow rate because the transactions are small.
Yeah, I personally would like to see covenants happen on Bitcoin, but since I hope this will be even more the reason for them to adopt it, but in the absence of them, would you be able to maybe relax your assumptions a little bit and use perhaps like a committee to emulate a covenant?
Yeah, absolutely. This could be possible to have essentially you would go back to the construction, this naive construction, the Strawman solution, but replacing the operator with a committee. And so, I mean, it's not palatable to trust a single person. It is a little bit more palatable to trust a subset of a committee, maybe. I find these constructions not so interesting anyway, and there is a social reputation structure going on there, so I think that it makes analysis more complicated, and at the end of the day, it opens the doors to attacks that we wouldn't like to see. Trustless solutions are the way to go, in my opinion. Unfortunately, we can't make that work with today's Bitcoin, and that's why we're sorely missing an update.
Yeah. Thanks for the great talk. Let's thank the speaker again.